An ordinary warm day, of which there are many in a year. The sun warms all living things with its rays. Mischievous sun bunnies also get into the building of the majestic temple in the Gothic style. A grand event is about to take place in the building, the wedding of two people who apparently love each other. Or maybe not so much. We will find out about it later. The bride in a white dress walks to the altar. There, near the cathedral behind which the priest stands, her future husband, a tall black-haired guy in an expensive gray suit, is already waiting for the girl. The bride is proud and confident. From a formal point of view, this is an impeccable, thought-out ducal wedding. The bride, a dark-haired girl with sad brown eyes, convinces herself that everything is fine, that there is no reason to be nervous. However, the looks of the guests make her do it. It can be seen that the rich aristocrats with neatly trimmed beards are not very happy about today's holiday. Their brides or wives are also not happy about the wedding. For them, it's just entertainment, a spectacle to laugh at. Young ladies will discuss this day for a long time. Other guests, not as respectable as the previous ones, sit at the tables and literally devour the bride with lustful looks. These drunkards would happily spend the night with a dark-haired woman. However, their dream is unlikely to ever come true. The girl is almost a married lady. She and her fiancé approach the priest. The boy and the girl do not look at each other. Not because they are ashamed of their feelings, no. They just don't love each other. But for the rich, love, unfortunately, does not matter. The priest, a middle-aged man, begins to recite a prayer. The young people pretend to listen to him attentively, but each of them is lost in his own thoughts. Thoughts, it must be said, are not fun at all, not appropriate for such a bright day. "We bless a beautiful husband and wife," says the priest in a calm but firm voice. The dark-haired woman lowers her head and mentally says that she cannot see a happy life. Not now that the girl has become the wife of a boy who hates her and will soon cut her throat. The priest ends his speech with words about creating a strong family. Let's move to the past life of our bride. She, a black-haired student in a classic white shirt and black skirt, climbs the stairs to her apartment. A tall guy blocks her way. He demands money from the student. She guesses that the young man will spend them on gambling. He starts to get angry. "Grandpa, take it away. You're sneaking around too much." The girl is indignant. She was fed up with this bastard. He presses the student against the wall. But the black-haired man is not afraid. "Do you even know how much money I have already borrowed? Can you return everything?" The guy calls the girl a stupid bitch and pushes her down. She does not even have time to grab something with her hand or even a bag. The girl takes one last look at the young man, and after a moment hits the cold floor. Now let's return to the current life of the bride, more precisely to the events that took place recently. A dark-haired woman sitting in one of the rooms of the Count's estate touches her lips. She looks up at the mirror and sees a beautiful girl with aristocratic features and light brown eyes. The dark-haired one can't understand why she looks like that. The girl does not yet know that she was reborn after that tragedy with the stairs. "Is there a transmigration of the soul?" she says quietly. The door of the room opens. A maid with short black hair and cold dark green eyes looks into the room. She turns to the dark-haired woman. "Lady Edith." The girl turns her head. "Haven't you forgotten what day it is?" asks the maid. The brunette looks confused. She was surprised by the address of Lady Edith. The girl met this name in the novel Abandoned Obsession, which she read in a past life. The main character of this work is the lovely blonde Lise Sinclair, the Count's illegitimate daughter. Due to her socially shameful origin, she was constantly insulted by the Count's family and lived an unhappy childhood. When the girl grew up, she was taken by a couple. Lise moved to the duchy with her new family. There, the girl met rich and incredibly handsome aristocrats who competed for her heart. Edith Riegelhoff, in whose body a dark-haired woman ended up, also has her place in this novel. Only she is not an angel like Lisa. Far from an angel. Edith is a stupid and greedy criminal blinded by love. Also, dark-haired is an incredibly jealous lady. She constantly screamed, arranged dramatic scenes for her family, and tried to do everything to ruin Lisa's life. Now Edith, whose body is already a completely different soul, sits on a chair and patiently waits for the maid to finish combing her luxurious hair. The girl thinks about the situation in which she is. Edith grew up in abundance and never worried about money. Why, if her father is the Count himself? After a few seconds, the maid informs the girl that everything is ready and moves away from the mirror. Edith looks incredible. Her hair is in a beautiful hairstyle, a dark dress decorated with lace. The maid tells the girl that the master is already waiting for her. She smiles widely. Dark-haired thanks for the message and runs out of the room. The maid is surprised. "Thank you." She had never heard that word from Edith, the Count's proud daughter, around whom the world revolved. The girl, holding a long, lush dress, runs down the corridor. A joyful smile plays on her face. Dark-haired thinks she only needs to fix Edith's mistakes. She remembers the plot of the novel well. If I behave well, the dark-haired girl's eyes twinkle, I can get the love of my family for free. The girl reaches the Count's room and opens the massive door wide. "Father, good morning," the dark-haired man says amiably without stopping to smile. But after a moment, all the joy of Edith evaporates. The dark-haired girl's father is standing at the table with a glass of wine in his hand. The man rudely says to his daughter, "Isn't it too late for the morning?" Edith is silent, not knowing how to answer this. The Count sighs unhappily and puts a glass of wine on the desktop. "You are so slow." It seems that the husband is not happy about the arrival of his daughter. He asks the girl why she came here so late in the first place. "Close the door from that side." The Count directly expels Edith. The girl lowers her eyes. Suddenly, a strange voice appears in her head. He tells the brunette that her identity verification is complete. Now the process of synchronizing information from memory is taking place. Edith feels that her consciousness is flying to pieces and the body is falling into some kind of abyss. It will stay there for a while so as not to interfere with the synchronization. One episode from her life appears in the girl's imagination. One of the rooms of the Count's estate. Edith is sitting on the floor in front of her father and some fair-haired young man. The girl promises the Count that she will not make any more mistakes. This painting is watched by a black-haired girl who is in Edith's body. Now she has a unique opportunity to learn the details of the life of the main criminal of the novel. The student is shocked by what she saw. She could not even imagine that Edith, a proud and cruel girl, is so afraid of her father and begs his forgiveness on her knees. Then another picture of Edith's life appears in the girl's mind. The Count takes a swing at the dark-haired man. From Edith's body, covered with bruises and scratches, you can understand that her father is beating her. After a few minutes, the man leaves, leaving Edith in the cold basement. The girl knocks on the door. "Let me out of here, please." The student understands that Edith is not at all what she seems. Her audacity is only an external image. The picture changes again. Edith is standing by the mirror in a beautiful dress. The fair-haired young man tells the girl that everything has to be paid for. To everyone else, the young lady Riegelhoff is just a living, attractive, and untouchable billboard of the Count's family, adorned in luxurious dresses. And at home, Edith turns into a punching bag on which everyone can take out their anger. Even the servants. They won't get anything for it. The Count will not be too upset if he loses his daughter. She is just an expensive doll for him. All the wounds on her body can be disguised with cosmetics. Edith is sitting on the floor. A student approaches the girl. The dark-haired one asks her, "Well, how? Do you think you can handle it?" There is no disgust or hidden hostility in the girl's voice, just tired of it all. The student does not know what to say. She is scared to death. Edith's problems turned out to be not as simple as the black-haired woman imagined them to be. Fixing the life of the Count's daughter will not be easy. Synchronization is complete. The dark-haired one snaps back to reality. The Count shouts at the girl. He is annoyed by the slowness and thoughtfulness of Edith, which appeared out of nowhere. Not at all common sense. The man hits the table with his hands. Edith falls into a chair and opens her eyes wide. There are so many questions in her head and so few answers. The Count narrows his eyes and grits his teeth. You can't go wrong today. Ludwig's people cannot be allowed to notice even the slightest imperfection. The girl moves back. The Count deeply dislikes her. The husband asks his daughter if she remembers the content of the contract well. The girl must say that she will take 3 maids with her. Then the Reichelkopf family will be able to move on to the next step. The dark-haired one bows his head and humbly answers, "Yes, father." The girl is sad because she has such a family. Several hours pass. Edith stands on the street and waits for the men accompanying her to settle their affairs. The dark-haired one thinks she needs to review her gender information. Duke Ludwig and Count Reigelhof have been rivals since childhood. The power of the two families was about the same, but the Ludwig family contributed to the war, for which they received the title of Duke. Of course, Count Reigelhof was unhappy with this turn of events. He believed that the Ludwig family defiantly stole the title of Duke from him. That is why the husband married Edith. With the help of his daughter, the man wanted to find information that could destroy the duchy. The dark-haired woman puts her hand to her chest. The girl feels that she will cry now. No need, she reassures herself. Everything is fine. You just have to turn this punishment into an opportunity. Edith clenches her hand into a fist. The girl does not know whether to say that she is lucky, but she knows how to find a way out of unpleasant situations and is very proud of it. The dark-haired girl's eyes sparkle. In novels where the heroine turns into a criminal, there is always a crisis at the beginning. Today, the girl just needs to behave differently from the original Edith. The Count's carriage stops. First, the men leave the crew, then Edith. The Count holds his daughter's hand as befits a gentleman. The girl looks quite sad. She looks up and sees a huge palace in light colors with many stairs. Several fountains with clean spring water are located on the territory of this estate. The Count, together with his children, is heading to the entrance to the palace. Edith is surprised by the grandeur and scale of Ludwig's estate. The girl's brother tells his father that the Duke's residence is as opulent as ever. The man says that splendor has no weight when it is empty inside. The conversation between father and son is interrupted by the butler, who was ordered by the Duke to meet the guests. The Ludwig family servant, a gray-haired man with a neatly trimmed beard, bows to the Count and says that the Duke and Duchess are already waiting for the Reigelhof family inside. The butler opens the door for the guests. "I'm taking you to them." The Count smiles and calls Edith. "Daughter, let's go faster. It's not good to make people wait too long." The girl mentally notes that her father behaves very politely and gallantly in public. The dark-haired woman decides to play along with her husband. She gives the Count her hand and smiles. "Yes, father," says Edith. The girl can barely keep up with the rapid pace of the Count and her brother. Of course, the dark-haired one does not like this blasphemy, but there is nothing you can do now. The Reigelhof family enters the dining room. The butler recommends them to the owners of the estate. 5 people are sitting at the table: the Duke, the Duchess, and their children. Edith smiles and twinkles her eyes. The main reason for her joy is to see the characters live, whose appearance she could only imagine based on the descriptions in the book. The Duchess thanks the guests for coming to the Duchy of Ludwig. "Are you hungry?" asks the woman politely. "The table will be ready soon." The Duke, a tall, stocky man, is silent. The girl looks at Cliff, one of the heirs of the Ludwig family, the main male character of the novel. He is a handsome black-haired young man with yellow eyes. Sitting next to Cliff is Lizzie, a cute blonde with big blue eyes and pale skin. The brunette mentally notes that Lizzie looks like a spring goddess. To the right of the blonde sits a young man who looks like Cliff. The only thing that distinguishes him from his brother is his eyes. Cold, dark blue eyes. This gloomy guy is Edith's future husband. The dark-haired woman's heart begins to beat at an incredible speed. The blushing girl puts her hand to her chest. "Oh, I fell in love with him? Now I think I understand why Edith was so jealous of him." A straight and sharp nose and chin line create a haughty image. The boy also has an incredible body, broad shoulders, a thin waist, moderately narrow hips. Edith does not know how a person can be so beautiful. The young man looks at his bride. After a second, he looks away, showing Edith that he is not interested in her. The girl is trying to pull herself together. To do this, she lightly and as imperceptibly as possible slaps herself on the cheek with her hand. "He still won't look at me." The brunette decides to focus on dinner. The table is covered with various snacks: fried salmon, cured meats, light healthy salads, lobster. Everything is here. The girl sits on a chair and picks up cutlery. There is already food on her plate: a piece of grilled meat, several pieces of potatoes, and stewed mushrooms. Edith cuts off a piece of meat and puts it in her mouth. It is so delicious that the girl closes her eyes with pleasure. The steak is just perfect. It is very tender, and the frying is perfect. The father of the dark-haired girl says to the Duke, "A father's heart will not calm down in any way. How can I send my daughter away like this?" The girl sighs. "It's begun." She understands what her father is talking about, but she doesn't show it. The Count puts his hand on the dark-haired woman's shoulder and tells the Duke that he would be calm if Edith took several maids with her. He says that with the maids who took care of Edith all her life, the girl will be more comfortable. The Duchess doesn't really like the Count's proposal, but she understands that it is necessary to say it as tactfully as possible. The woman smiles, but I think our maids are second to none. The Count cuts the steak. The man brings a piece of meat to his mouth, smiling bitingly, asks the Duchess if she brought maids with her when she got married. Fiancée Edith directs a displeased look at the Count. It seems to the boy that the father of the dark-haired girl allows himself too much, especially being in someone else's house. But the young man is silent. He understands that his words can worsen the already strained relationship between the two influential families. There is silence in the room. Edith rolls her eyes. The girl is uncomfortable for her father. The Duke stares at his opponent. It seems that the man understood that the Count was asking for permission to send several maids with Edith for a reason. However, it will not work to politely refuse the father of the dark-haired woman, so Edith is going to intervene in the conversation. "Don't worry, Duke," the girl says in her mind and wipes her mouth with a napkin. After that, Edith smiles at the Count and, without looking at him, says, "I'm fine, father. Please forget this request, Duke. I'm getting married very young, that's why my father is worried." Lunch passed without incident. Edith's family returns home. The Count shouts at his daughter. He did not like her behavior. Or rather, the fact that she violated their agreement about the maids. The girl sighs tiredly and asks her father, "Haven't you seen the Duke?" Dark-haired tries to justify his act. The man is silent. Edith turns on her acting skills. She clenches her hand into a fist and says in a dramatic tone, "You asked that too, obviously. But you know how tense I am?" The dark-haired woman asks what good the maids are if she has already aroused the Ludwig family's suspicions. The Count narrows his eyes and says displeasedly, "But what can you do if you are alone?" The girl tells her father to think about it while she is in the duchy. If nothing happens, the members of the Ludwig family will relax their vigilance. All suspicions must be dispelled. The girl puts her hand to her chest. "After I gain their trust, I will pretend that I miss my native home." The girl also suggests the possibility of implementing the option with a maid, but a little later. The Count puts his hand to his chin. He finds his daughter's thoughts quite good. "Now we know what a difficult life Edith had. Let's go back to her wedding." The girl listens to the words of the priest. She is glad that now she will not have to live with her father. "Herschen, bless their wedding rings and the eternal covenant hidden in them." The priest finishes the prayer. The boy and the girl turn to face each other. Now the newlyweds will exchange wedding rings. Little boys and girls dressed in festive costumes carry the decorations. Babies worry because they are afraid of doing something wrong. Edith smiles at the children. They seem very cute to her. The dark-haired man feels a piercing, icy gaze on him. She looks up at her fiancé. The boy's expression is full of disgust. Pressed lips, raised eyebrows, everything betrays the young man's contempt for Edith. The girl sighs. She knows Killian doesn't love her. But now they just need to hurry so that this holiday of blasphemy is over as soon as possible. A boy and a girl hand the young a red pillow on which wedding rings lie. Edith closes her eyes and holds out her white, thinly gloved hand to Killian. The young man takes a silver ring with a diamond with thin fingers and quickly puts it on the dark-haired woman's finger. The girl looks at the decoration and smiles. Edith was amused by the way Killian put the wedding ring on her finger. He did it very carefully so as not to touch the girl's hand. Edith understands that her husband does not like it, but it is already too much, somehow childish. Now it's the girl's turn to put the wedding ring on Killian's finger. But Edith does not have time to take the decoration. The young man does it before her. Edith gives Killian a surprised look. She doesn't understand what he's up to. The guy puts on his wedding ring himself. Those present in the hall start to laugh. Edith lowers her eyes. Killian's action offended her. "He must have done it on purpose to humiliate me," says the girl in her mind. The dark-haired girl clenches her hand into a fist and takes a deep breath, trying to calm herself down. The girl convinces herself that nothing terrible has happened. Anyway, she's not interested in Killian. Edith lightly runs her hand through the girl's hair and smiles. "Thank you." The boy looks at the dark-haired man with undisguised disgust. Children leave the hall. The girl turns her head to the side, showing Killian that she is also not happy about this event, but unlike him, behaves with dignity. The old man looks at Edith. Interest seems to have appeared in his eyes, but in any case it quickly disappears. Killian looks forward. The priest takes out a huge old book with a brown cover and begins to read a new prayer. Edith thinks that a period in her life has finally come when she can enjoy peace. Evening. The ceremony is over. Edith stretches on her luxurious bed. Yesterday's wedding tired her out. Now the girl finally feels alive. On the holiday, she was worried about many things. For example, because of a very deep neckline in a dress. High heels also caused inconvenience. Edith needs her hands. After a few minutes, the girl sits down on a chair near the dressing table and starts combing her luxurious curls. Someone knocks on the door. "Come in," says Edith. "Listen, Lady Edith." This thin voice seems very familiar to the dark-haired man. The girl shuddered and turned to face her guest. "This is Lisa." The dark-haired one smiles at the blonde. "Ah, Lady Lisa, what happened?" The blonde looks quite excited. She uncertainly tells Edith that she would like to tell something. The dark-haired man opens his eyes wide. She recalls that a similar episode was in the original novel, and if Edith remembers correctly, it happened shortly after the wedding. In that episode, Lise was visited by Edith. The blonde wants to apologize for Killian's rudeness during the ceremony. However, her apology, on the contrary, angered the offended Edith even more. The dark-haired woman could not blame her husband, so all her anger poured out on Lisa. The girl scolded the blonde for coming to someone else's wedding in a white dress. Edith smiles when she recalls the incident. I can honestly understand why she was so upset. But the new Edith has no reason to be angry with Liza. The blonde approaches Edith and quietly says, "I would like to apologize for Killian's rudeness. I hope you didn't take too much offense at him." Lise puts her hand to her chest and says that Killian is actually a warm-hearted person. What he produced during the ceremony was just a show for attention. The dark-haired one smiles. The blonde's words move her. Edith just can't hate this sweet girl who seems incapable of harming anyone. Bright, shiny blonde hair, big blue eyes, a symbol of innocence. A cute appearance is combined with a righteous heart. This is how the main character of the novel should be. Edith squints sweetly and tells Lisa not to worry. "I understand." The dark-haired man tilts his head to the side. She wants to treat Lisa kindly. Edith says that it was as difficult for Killian as it was for her, because this marriage was an arrangement between their families. "I will not be offended," says the girl. Lisa is surprised. Bilyavka expected a completely different reaction. Lisa thought that the dark-haired woman would become jealous of her for Killian. The blonde opens her eyes wide. "Lady Edith!" Edith hopes she's doing the right thing. Lisa smiles and claps her hands. Bilyavka says that Edith is a very kind and mature girl, and these qualities are admirable. A blushing Edith puts her hand to her forehead. It is very nice to receive a sincere compliment from such a sensitive and sweet girl as Lisa. Edith decides to return a compliment to a compliment. "But I'm not even compared to you. This dress suits you so well." Lisa is embarrassed. A maid enters the room. "Ma'am, I brought you a towel." Lisa shivers. She begins apologizing to Edith for preventing her from taking a bath.
The blonde is about to say that she will call Killian now, but stops herself. "You must be very tired," says the blonde. The dark-haired woman waves her hand and smiles.
The girls say goodbye. As soon as Lisa leaves the room, Edith takes off her thin velvet shirt. Is that the end of the wedding episode? The dark-haired woman asks herself with hope. The girl is going to have a good rest. She goes to the bathroom with bare feet. The dark-haired one climbs in and sighs with relief. What a hot water. I finally feel alive. Edith smiles widely. Although she became the Duke's wife only a few hours ago, she already feels the privileges of her title. For example, now she doesn't have to work hard. No, of course Edith will have to do something, but no one will make her sit in the office until she loses her pulse. The dark-haired woman leans back on the bathtub. I will attend operas and balls. The girl imagines how she will spend time with the ducal family, but her thoughts are interrupted by someone's cold voice. Take a bath before the husband comes. Edith shuddered. Killian is standing in front of the girl. The guy, as usual, looks displeased. He casually waves his hand and calls Edith shameless wife. The dark-haired one tries to cover himself. She is shocked by the sudden appearance of her husband. Lisa seemed to say that she would not call him. Did he come himself? There was no such episode in the original story. The young man asks the girl why she is so surprised. Was someone else supposed to come here? He tries to touch Edith. The girl understands this. She decides not to succumb to provocation. The dark-haired girl smiles and tells Killian that she just didn't expect him to come. The old man says with a sneer in his voice, "Thank God you're smart enough." Edith asks how else. After all, Killian didn't even let the dark-haired woman put a wedding ring on him. The old man leans over to Edith. "Did you expect strange courtships from me?" He thinks that the dark-haired girl is a naive fool who hopes for unearthly love. Killian's behavior annoys the girl, as well as his eternally dissatisfied face. Edith does not understand how it is possible to be such a handsome man and at the same time such a moron. But the dark-haired woman has no reason to hate Killian. He, like her, married against his own will. Besides, Edith is so tired that she doesn't even have the strength to get angry. She says in a calm tone, "I'm just telling the truth. You obviously won't be in this room today after treating me like that." Killian's eyes widen. He did not expect Edith to be so calm. The guy suddenly turns around and walks away. The dark-haired man arches a thin eyebrow. "Why did you come at all?" The guy almost runs down the empty corridor. He feels humiliated. Edith, without using rude words, let the young man understand that he had behaved unworthily. And this annoyed the young man. Suddenly, someone calls out to him, "Killian!" Parubak stops and turns his head to the side. He sees Lisa. The blonde asks Killian if he was in his wife's room. The young man sighs and says he was, but Edith had no expectations for tonight. In principle, just like him. Lisa asks what that means. Killian says with undisguised disgust in his voice. She climbed into the bath and took a nap. Lisa puts her hand to her chest. The girl is surprised by the young man's words. She tries to say that Edith was waiting for her husband, but Killian stops the blonde. He gently runs his hand through her fair hair. "You think too well of everyone." Farubak is openly hostile to Edith and the Riegelhoff family in general. Killian thinks the dark-haired one will make fun of him. Lisa lowers her head. She says something about Edith's words. Killian guesses that Lisa was visiting his young wife. He excitedly asks the blonde what the dark-haired girl asked her. The girl looks away from the young man. "Lady Edith complimented my dress, and I immediately blushed." It can be seen that Lisa is upset about something. Killian can't believe that Edith complimented the blonde's dress. He thinks that the dark-haired woman offended Lisa's appearance, but the blonde immediately denies it. She says that maybe something upset Edith. Killian smirks. "Upset? Ha! Think about the dress she was wearing." The guy says that the dark-haired woman's wedding dress was too revealing, even lewd. "Isn't that why Edith reacted the way she did to your dress?" Killian asks Lisa. He snorts, recalling Edith's appearance, especially her scornful look and plunging cleavage. The young man calls his wife obscene. Liza is outraged by Killian's words. She does not understand how you can insult your own wife with such rude words. "How did you even manage to say that?" the girl shouts. It's offensive to the guy. He does not like that Lisa is protecting a person he hates. The old man asks the blonde if she wants to tell him something else. Upset by Killian's harshness, the girl tries to correct the situation. "Killian, that's not what I meant." But the young man barely lets her finish. The guy asks Lisa if she knows about his feelings. Someone's voice intervenes in the conversation of the half-brother and sister. "Lisa!" Killian shuts up immediately. He is not going to explain his feelings for Lisa in front of other people, and especially with his brother who happened to meet them. Cliff smiles charmingly and asks the blonde and Killian what they are doing here. Lisa smiles back at her stepbrother. She is very happy to see him. But Killian looks unhappy with the appearance of his brother. He is jealous of the blonde towards Cliff. The eldest of the brothers begins to discuss something with Lisa. Killian sighs and hangs his head. He was so hoping to have a good time with the blonde, and Cliff, as always, ruined everything. The morning of the next day, Edith wakes up in her room. The dark-haired one sits on the bed and stretches, yawning loudly. She glances at the clock and her eyes widen in surprise. Even after yesterday's grueling ceremony, Edith woke up on time. "It must be the strength of a young, no healthy girl," says the dark-haired man. She joyfully clenches her hands into fists. Edith had never felt so good in her life. She puts her hand to her chin and contemplates her new title as the Duke's daughter-in-law. If it works out, the dark-haired man will be able to enjoy life in peace. Killian is a minor character in love with Lisa, but his parents may be different. After a few minutes of thinking, the dark-haired man gets up from the bed and goes to the window. The girl hopes that Duke and Duchess Ludwig, who so warmly welcomed Lisa, will open their hearts to her, Killian's wife. During their first meeting, the atmosphere was not very good. And all because of Edith's father. The girl is going to fix the situation. The dark-haired one smiles widely and twinkles his eyes. "I'll say hello to them first." But Edith is in no hurry to do it right now. First, you need to get yourself in order and think everything over. The girl assumes that she must win the trust of the heroes of the novel. If the dark-haired man wants to survive in the Ludwig family, the opinion of the Duke and Duchess is more important than Killian's. After all, they still make the main decisions in the duchy. Edith understands that her husband is unlikely to love her, so she decides not to even try to conquer. All the girl wants now is to enjoy a quiet life. For this, she needs to win the trust of the Ludwig couple. Edith thinks that no mother-in-law would hate a daughter-in-law who came to say hello the day after the wedding. Edith notices a bell with a rope on the wall. The girl is smiling. In a past life, she had read about such a thing in books. You can call a maid with the help of a bell. This is exactly what Edith needs now. A maid can turn a girl into a decent daughter-in-law in a matter of minutes. Edith calls the maid. A slender, black-haired girl comes. The dark-haired girl asks the maid to prepare her breakfast. The girl bows to Edith. She crosses her arms over her chest and asks the maid's name. "Anna, ma'am," she answers. Edith, who is just examining her clothes brought from the Regelhof estate, says, "Tell me, Anna, are all the dresses that I brought with me from my parents' house really so vulgar?" The maid gives the dark-haired man an affirmative answer. Edith is thinking, the situation is so-so. If a girl shows up for breakfast in a dress with a plunging neckline, she is unlikely to be welcomed. Edith imagines the expressions on the Duke and Duchess's faces and sighs. God, what a shame. The dark-haired woman thinks about what she should do so as not to be embarrassed on the very first day of her stay at the estate. The girl turns her head towards Anna. The dark-haired woman asks the maid to go to the workshop and ask her to sew her dresses. Anna bows her head to her mistress. The girl leaves Edith's room. The dark-haired woman is surprised. "I didn't give the order, but she went to carry it out without objection. That's how I knew that the maids at my father's estate were strange." Edith picks up one of her dresses with thin straps and, of course, a plunging neckline. The girl notes that this thing will also need to be sewn. But a little later. Now the main thing is not to be late for breakfast. Edith opens her eyes wide. She remembered something else incredibly important. The night after the wedding was supposed to be the first night of marriage, but there was nothing between Edith and Killian. The girl wonders if she should make some blood stains on the bed, but after a second, the dark-haired man rejects this idea. Killian will definitely not be happy if his wife deals with this issue on her own, and all because, as in the original story, the Duke's youngest son is ready to give his all to Lisa. He wants to save his virginity just for the blonde. The dark-haired one guesses this. She smiles dreamily. "Chaste, handsome man, how wonderful. Don't impose too much sympathy on a secondary character." The girl freezes in place when she remembers Killian. She still does not understand why this cold guy came to her last night. Why was he standing over her bath? Just to fight? Whatever it was, Edith enjoyed looking at Killian's perfect face. The dark-haired one blushes. Heart is beating so fast. Anna, who has just finished combing Edith's hair, calls her, "Ma'am." The girl shuddered in surprise. She was too lost in her thoughts. Anna says that everything is ready. The dark-haired one thanks the girl. Edith is angry with herself for having romantic thoughts about Killian. Yes, this young man is very handsome, but he is not interested in a girl. At least, she thinks so. A few minutes later, Edith enters the hall where the Ludwig couple is having breakfast. A girl wearing a dark dress with no cleavage greets the Duke and Duchess. She wonders if they slept well. Simple etiquette formulas of politeness work. The Duke and Duchess smile kindly at their daughter-in-law. The Duchess says she slept well that night and invites Edith to the table. The woman puts her hand to her chest and says, "I was worried, aren't you worried?" Edith sits on the edge of the sofa and says that everything is fine. Dark-haired sees a cup of tea on the table. The girl is smiling. She likes that the Ludwig couple took care of her. Edith is less worried. She is sure that the Ludwigs were informed that there was no wedding night today. The girl raises a cup of tea to her lips. The Duke decides to talk to his daughter-in-law. The Count raised you as a favorite daughter. I wonder if you know anything at all about the affairs of the housekeeper of the House of Aristocrats. The girl smiles and says that she knows how to allocate a budget, manage some affairs, and work with documents. Perhaps, continues Edith. Things are a little different in the duchy, but if you teach me, I'll learn quickly. The Duke is somehow strangely smiling. He takes a sip of his tea and says to Edith, "It seems that the Count has only taught you properly." The girl freezes in place. She understands what the Duke is implying. He thinks that Edith will try to steal the documents of the Ludwig family at the first opportunity. The girl carefully puts the cup on the saucer. The dark-haired one looks up at the Duke and says confidently, "If I don't deserve your trust, teach me something else, I will try." The man clears his throat. The Duchess nudges him under the elbow. The woman does not like that the Duke is so rude to Edith. The Duchess hurries to correct the situation. "Thank God that the Count taught you well. You can help me in 2 weeks. If you need something, say." Edith smiles and thanks the Duchess. The dark-haired man asks the woman, "Would you be able to set me up with someone who will introduce me to the estate?" The woman is somewhat surprised by such a request. She thought Kiliana would give Edith a little tour, but after a few seconds, the Duchess agrees to find a guide. Dark-haired says that it is time for her to go. She says goodbye to the Ludwig couple and leaves the hall, carefully closing the door behind her. Edith exhales loudly as soon as he leaves the room. The girl was very nervous during communication with the Duke and Duchess. Someone approaches the dark-haired woman and asks if she is okay. The girl smiles. "Ah, yes, I'm sorry, I was just nervous." A tall green-eyed man in glasses is standing in front of Edith. His long blonde hair is pulled back into a somewhat unkempt ponytail. The girl guesses that it is Baron Renan Filch. The dark-haired one bows to the man and smiles. "Nice to meet you, well, take care of me." Renan is to become Edith's tour guide. Renan now works as the Duke's assistant. Once upon a time, the man was an ordinary servant engaged in document circulation. The girl is a little nervous because Renan was not mentioned in the original novel. The man asks the dark-haired woman if she wants to tour the estate just now. Renan looks very serious. Sometimes it seems to a girl that this is not just a world inside a book, but reality. That's all for real here. Rusyavi says that he has a lot of work today, so he won't be able to devote much time to Edith. The girl smiles. "Let's start now." Renan walks forward. The girl catches up with him. She wonders if all the characters absent from the original story share this kind of openness. A man and a girl enter a dark room. It has stands for jewelry. Renan says it's a jewelry room. The Duchy's family jewels are kept here. Then the fair-haired man takes Edith to the next room with weapons and knight's armor. These things are usually used by the Duke's sons and himself. After a few minutes, Renan and the dark-haired man enter a huge room with bookshelves. Ludwig's family library. Rusyavi says that many rare books are stored here. Amazed, Edith looks around the library. She likes this place. The girl is already imagining how she will spend her time here. However, it is better to ask Renan if you can enter here without permission. Without turning around, the man replies, "Every member of the Duke's family can visit the library whenever they want." The man adds that this rule also applies to the Sextine Hall, where new works of art are presented every month. Edith's eyes twinkle. Wonderful. In her past life, due to lack of money, the girl could not attend various cultural events, but now everything has changed. Renan opens the door of the Sextine Hall. Edith's eyes widen in surprise. The room itself is spacious and bright. The walls, windows, and ceiling are decorated with gold. And what are the sculptures located here worth? A real treat for the eyes. Renan says the estate is too big to go through in one go. The girl thanks her husband for the excursion. The dark-haired one can't believe that he lives in such a beautiful estate. She smiles at Renan. "You have such a nice voice. I didn't even notice how time flew by." Renan freezes in place. A faint blush appears on his cheeks. It seems that the man is not used to compliments. He says he was just doing his job. The girl agrees. A man and a girl go out on the balcony. Renan says that there is a large terrace below. "A large terrace?" asks the dark-haired man. Renan points to a gazebo with a blue roof and says that it is often used when guests come to the estate. The Duke also likes to sit in the gazebo. Edith sees that Lise, Killian, and Cliff are sitting at a small table. They have a nice conversation about something. Killian keeps his eyes on Lise. Dark-haired is not very happy to watch this. Renan notices a change in the girl's mood. The man is wary. He does not really understand what is wrong. The girl begins to look at the nature around, trying to distract herself from thoughts about Killian, who is currently spending time with Lisa. Edith exhales loudly. Renan directs his gaze to the terrace and notices there the reason for Edith's sudden sadness. "Mr. Killian," says the blonde in surprise. The dark-haired one just smiles. Renan asks himself why the young master is here. Edith does not immediately guess that Renan is shocked by what he saw, because Killian should be with his wife and not drinking tea with another woman. The dark-haired one wonders, what did Edith do in the original story? She must have caused a scandal and blamed everything on Liza. Well, in any case, I have to behave with dignity. The girl glances at the gazebo again. Killian doesn't look at all like he did yesterday at the wedding. Next to Lisa, he is kind of relaxed or something. Cliff notices Edith and his eyes twinkle. The girl hurries to look away from Killian and pretend that she does not care what her husband is doing. The dark-haired one straightens her hair and smiles at Renan. "This is a really beautiful place. The garden will look even better in late spring. I'm sure of it." The blonde agrees with the girl. He looks confused by Edith's calm reaction to Killian's behavior. The girl says that she will come here often, but leaves. Renan looks after the dark-haired woman. He is really surprised by her behavior. Yes, Edith Riegelhoff is not what he thought. Liza's loud laughter can be heard from the terrace. A spacious room, lined with cabinets with a lot of books. This is the Duke's office. A man sits at his desk and looks through family documents. Renan stands in front of the Duke. Redhead is here to tell the owner of this estate about Edith. Renan says that the girl listened to him attentively during the excursion. Also, she understood the structure of the estate surprisingly quickly, adds the blonde. The Duke, not distracted by the papers, asks Renan if he noticed anything strange. Rusyavi says that nothing like that happened. Edith smiled and behaved very politely. Despite the rumors, she showed herself very well. But after a few seconds, Renan remembers the scene on the terrace and decides to tell the Duke about it. When the husband hears that his married son has been drinking tea in Lisa's company, he stops writing. The Duke looks up at the blonde. "What?" The man sighs loudly. He also asks Killian not to give cause for claims or scandals. The Duke thinks that Edith was not joking when she saw Killian with another woman. The man recalls how he had to persuade his son to marry Edith. The Duke convinced Killian that this marriage was necessary to prevent the friendship between Count Riegelhoff and Count Langston. The guy said that he would be Edith's husband only on paper. The Duke drops his quill on the document. A large ink stain appears on the paper. The man clenches his hands into fists. And knowing all this, he did so. Renan is careful to say that the lady didn't even pay attention to Killian's flirtation with Lise. Herzog can't believe his ears. "Didn't you pay attention? What?" The blonde turns his head to the side. "Of course I don't know what Lady Edith was thinking, but instead of making a fuss, she just walked away pretending nothing happened." The Duke puts his hand to his chin. He must admit that his daughter-in-law is quite an unusual girl. So far, she differs from the image of the hysterical Edith Riegelhoff. Dark-haired room. The girl had just finished her lunch. Anna approaches her and asks permission to remove the dishes from the table. Edith thanks the maid. Anna begins to fuss. Dark-haired does not feel very comfortable. In her past life, she tried to eat only at home, so she cannot sit quietly and watch someone clean. Dark-haired decides to help the maid. The girl smiles at Anna and says that she made a good effort at dinner. She offers the maid to go eat. Anna stares at her mistress for a few seconds. The maid was not used to such a friendly attitude. No, the Duke's family did not insult her, but they did not help either. Anna realizes that the silence has been prolonged, so she hastens to thank the girl and leave the room. Edith thinks that her kindness may arouse suspicion. But you don't do anything. It is better to overdo it with good behavior than to accidentally offend someone. Edith leans on her arm and sighs. We need to decide how to treat Lisa. The blonde should become the main heroine of this world. However, her life was not simple and cloudless until she got into the Ludwig family. Sinclair's son and daughter constantly abused Lise. the Count's illegitimate child. The native home became a prison for the blonde, where she was humiliated and even beaten. But Liza's kindness and sensitivity saved her. Due to the fact that the blonde helped Duchess Ludwig not to fall from the horse, the influential couple paid attention to her. The Duchess and Duke were outraged by the cruel treatment of the Count and his children towards little Lisa. The Ludwigs bought the rights to the Lisa from Sinclair. The Count quickly renounced his parental rights and thereby lost the opportunity to procreate with the Duke. Sinclair regretted it very much. Edith picks up a cup of fragrant tea. The girl recalls that there was not a single positive hero with a tragic ending in the book. The past life of the dark-haired woman was full of troubles from beginning to end. The management of the company where the girl worked constantly took advantage of their position. And this is only one of the many disappointments that befell the girl. She broke up with her boyfriend when she saw him going to a motel with another woman. The day when the student learned about her lover's betrayal was the last in her life. As we already know, the broken black-haired woman was pushed down the stairs. The girl hit her head on the cold floor and died from blood loss. The student does not know what happened to Appa, her abuser. She doesn't know if her parents were sad without her. The girl sadly thinks that they cared more about Appa than their dead daughter. But it doesn't matter now. In this life, the dark-haired woman takes care of herself. Edith, who had just stepped out onto the balcony to get some fresh air, notices Lisa in the Duke's garden. A blonde woman, dressed in a soft pink dress, sits under a tree and reads. Edith thinks it might be better to befriend Lise instead of avoiding her. The brunette is about to leave for her room as Killian notices. The guy approaches Lisa and leans his hand on a tree. He asks the blonde what she is reading. Lisa smiles. This is the story of the imperial family. Bilyavka says that she is reading this somewhat difficult book because she wants to become more educated. Working on my future. Lisa squints sweetly. Killian flashes his gray eyes and tells the blonde that she can call on him if she needs to. I'll be happy to help you figure it all out, says the boy. Edith enters the room and closes the balcony door. The girl does not want Lisa and Killian to notice her. Now she watches the blonde and the boy through the window. It's safer that way. But after a few seconds, the dark-haired man catches himself thinking that eavesdropping is not a good idea. She closes the curtain until suddenly she hears Lise asking Killian where his wife is. Edith freezes in place. The blonde woman reproachfully says to the boy, "Is she alone all day?" But Killian tells Lise not to pay attention to the dark-haired one. The guy calls his young wife a hostage who will leave this estate very soon. Edith sighs deeply. So what does he think of me? The estate of the Sinclair family. One of the rooms. A porcelain teapot flies into the wall. It shatters into pieces. This rather cute thing was broken by the owner of the room, a pretty at first glance fair-haired girl wearing a green dress. The blonde is very angry. She clasps her head in her hands and shouts, "Machnia, it's just some kind of delusion." The girl asks herself, why this girl? This blonde with blue eyes is Layla Sinclair, Earl Sinclair's youngest daughter. Someone enters the room and asks the girl what happened, but he looks at the uninvited guest. Don't pretend to be a fool. You know everything. Filyavka says that Edith Riegelhoff married Killian Ludwig. The visitor, a tall blonde boy, Damien Sinclair, smiles. He is amused by his sister's indignation. Layla clenches her hands into fists. Why Riegelhoff? The young man waves his hand and says that perhaps the Ludwigs have such a hobby, collecting useless women. The girl growls at her brother. You're having fun, aren't you? The guy says that there is no point in getting angry. Layla's brother's calm makes her suspicious. The blonde looks into the young man's eyes. So you know something that I don't? The boy crosses his arms on his chest and smiles at his sister from the corner of his mouth. He calls the maid to clean up the mess in the room. Layla sits down on the couch and looks at her brother expectantly. Tell me. The guy sits down in a soft beige chair. The maid serves tea to the young gentleman. The young man raises a cup of hot drink to his lips and tells his sister that she is very temperamental. Layla drills him with blue eyes. The old man finally stops making fun of his sister. Well, let's rewind time. Why did these two play a wedding? Damien answers his own question. The boy says that Count Riegelhoff has the right to distribute the iron ore mined from the southern deposits. In other words, he has raw materials. From this raw material, the Count can make weapons. Layla picks up her cup of tea. Damien asks his sister why what he just said is so important. The blonde narrows her eyes. Where did you get the idea that the Count will make weapons, and in general I don't know? Damien laughs and asks his sister if she knows how the powers are divided now. The young man says that the main political forces are Archduke Langston, who aspires to become emperor, and the imperial faction that supports the young ruler. It would be dangerous if the Archduke's followers started making weapons, wouldn't it? Asks the young man. Duke Ludwig had to win Regelhof over to his side. Despite her brother's hint, Leda still doesn't understand anything, which is why she gets angry. What's the good in this? You wanted to explain why marriage is necessary. Are you mocking me? Damien asks his sister to listen to him to the end. The old man smiles slyly and twinkles his eyes. Is Count Regelhof really sitting on Duke Ludwig's chain? The boy tells his sister about what he saw very recently when he was at the Regelhof estate. He was just walking down the corridor when he suddenly heard the Count's screams. Damien immediately stopped and went to the source of the voice. The young man, careful not to be noticed, looked into one of the rooms. There he saw the Count shouting at his daughter. The girl begged her father not to punish her. Edith promised the Count that she would not make any more mistakes. Regelhof told his daughter, "If you don't do what you have to do, you'll be without dinner for a week." Damien was shocked by this picture. He could not believe for a long time that the image of the proud and unprincipled Edith Regelhof was a fake. Layla is also surprised by this fact. "Impossible," says the girl. Damien leans back in his chair and says that Edith is really just a victim of her father. The guy is smiling. He is interested in how events will develop. If the Sinclair siblings can get all the information they need about Edith, the Regelhofs will be doomed. The Lord of the Ludwig family. A mischievous breeze enters the room through high ceiling-to-ceiling windows. Renan and Edith walk down the corridor. The man shows the girl another part of the building. Renan leads the dark-haired man to the balcony. This is another exit to the terrace. The girl is impressed by the beauty and grandeur of the estate. It took Edith a whole week to visit all the rooms in the house. What should I do now? She thinks. Renan gives the brunette a somewhat suspicious look and tells her not to worry about it. Edith does not really understand what the blonde is talking about. "The Duchess has a request for you," the blonde says restrainedly. The girl immediately perks up. "Really?" Renan stares at the dark-haired man. He had never seen a person who was happy to be asked, but the man would not be so surprised if he knew how difficult it is for Edith to sit idle. The girl clarifies the location of the Duchess's office in blonde. "Third door on the left if you go down the corridor, right?" Renan silently agrees. The dark-haired woman smiles charmingly at the man and says that thanks to him she finds her way around this estate perfectly. The girl thanks Renan and asks if she is a good student. The blonde opens his eyes. The behavior affects him somehow strangely. After a minute, the man finally pulls himself together. He adjusts his glasses. "It would be strange if you forgot everything." Edith says goodbye to her husband and heads to the Duchess's office. There, the girl is met by a smiling Lisa. "Come in quickly." The Duchess is distracted by the papers. Edith smiles at the blonde. Dark Hair asks Lisa if they can work together. The girl takes the blonde by the hand. "What happiness, if so. Please teach me everything." Lise is embarrassed by such praise. The blonde blushed. "I should be glad that the Duchess considers me capable of carrying out serious assignments." The Duchess notes that the girls get along well with each other. Edith turns her head towards the woman. "Mother, I'm sorry I didn't greet you." But the Duchess is not offended by her daughter-in-law. The woman squints sweetly and says that these are small things. She asks Lisa to help her with the documents. Bilyavka agrees. Edith joins Lisa. The girls sit for several hours at a long desk and painstakingly go through family papers. The Duchess gets up and starts pacing the room. "But where are they?" the woman says with a note of irritation in her voice. Edith asks the Duchess who she is waiting for. Instead of the woman, Lisa gives the answer to this question. The Duchess called the tailors. Edith's eyes widen in surprise. It is, of course, good for tailors, but there is one caveat. There was a similar episode in the original story. It ended with a quarrel between Edith and Lisa. The dark-haired woman was dissatisfied with something and made a face at the innocent blonde. Well, this time the girl will try not to repeat the mistakes of the past. A maid enters the room. She tells the Duchess that the tailors have already arrived and are waiting in the drawing room. The woman suggests that the girls stop working and have some fun. They agree and fold the papers into small, neat piles. Edith tries to recall the details of the original episode. Living room. The Duchess is sitting on a luxurious, soft sofa. In her hands, the woman has a catalog with dresses for any color and taste. The Duchess catches herself thinking that she chooses monotonous designs all the time. Edith and Lisa are sitting opposite the woman. Girls are also busy choosing dresses, at least Lisa. Edith is frantically trying to remember the details of the episode. And she succeeds. After a few minutes, the Duchess puts her magazine aside and says to the girls, "Would you please pick out something for me?" Edith tenses up. It seems to the girl that the woman asked for this because she wants to check on her. But the dark-haired man does not understand why. The Duchess will still like Lisa's choice. Edith stares at the blonde. Ta asks her mother if they can really choose a dress for her on their own. The dark-haired man tries to calm himself down. Still, it won't change anything. Lisa is the main character of this story, so it's obvious that her choice will be better than Edith's. Besides, the blonde has known the Duchess for 5 years. A cute girl with brown wavy hair, one of the seamstresses, approaches Edith. She gives the dark-haired woman another catalog of dresses. Edith is delighted with the beauty of the proposed outfit. Lise has already managed to look at all the options for dresses. The girl's blue eyes sparkle. How about this option? She hands the Duchess a catalog. On one of its pages is a dark blue lush velvet dress with a closed top. "I think," says Lisa, "it will emphasize your beauty." The dressmaker says it's a great choice. The design of this dress was developed very recently. It is made of high-quality velvet. Dark-haired tries to look in the catalog. The girl is 100% sure that Lise has chosen one of the best options, as it should be expected. The Duchess has a light skin tone, so any color will suit her. However, dark blue will especially emphasize the amber eyes of an aristocrat. The Duchess snaps Edith out of her thoughts. The woman asks the dark-haired man if she liked anything. The lady wants to hear her daughter-in-law's opinion. Edith smiles. "It will be difficult because the dress that Lady Lise chose is unsurpassed. But if you want something new, how about this?" The girl hands the Duchess a catalog. The woman is shocked by Edith's choice. It is impossible to say for sure whether the Duchess liked the proposed dress or not. It's just that a woman is used to a certain monotony. The dark-haired one understands this. "I think you can wear this dress on days when you want to change your mood a bit." Edith's choice is quite bold. A lush, gray-blue dress with lantern sleeves. The dressmaker says that this is a wonderful combination of colors that not everyone can appreciate. Edith stares at the Duchess, waiting for what she will say. The woman thinks, "The dress is beautiful, but is the design too bold for me?" Edith sighs. The girl knew that the Duchess would not appreciate her choice. The dark-haired woman tries to convince the woman to order her chosen option. "You are very beautiful, so you will match this dress?" The Duchess hesitates, but still agrees. She says she will order both dresses. It's time to pick up something for Lisa. The blonde looks somewhat surprised. Even in a few years of living in the duchy, she was used to good treatment. Lisa waves her hands and says that there is no need to choose anything. She already has enough dresses. But the Duchess does not listen to the blonde. The woman has already chosen a beautiful floral dress for Lisa. Edith points to the pink design. This dress would suit Lady Lise too. Such a pink color does not suit everyone, but the lady has pale skin and rosy cheeks, so she will look incredible in it. The Duchess picks up the catalog to look at the option that Edith suggested. This time, the woman likes the choice of dark-haired. Lise still tries to say she doesn't need anything, but the girl's words are again ignored. Edith and the Duchess choose a white dress with aquamarine decoration for Lisa. The dressmaker writes down the wishes of aristocrats on paper. About half an hour later, the Duchess tells the dressmaker that they will stop at 5 dresses for Lisa. Edith sighs. "How difficult it was to choose, Mother." The woman recalls that they did not choose a dress for the dark-haired woman. Edith smiles and says that she does not need new clothes. Instead, she asks the dressmaker if the atelier does dress alterations. The green-eyed girl smiles. "Of course, but what do you mean by recycling?" Edith says she has several dresses she would like to have remade. The girl asks Anna to bring them. The maid immediately obeys the dark-haired woman's order. Anna brings a black and white dress. Edith asks the dressmaker to remove all jewelry and cleavage from her clothes. Green-eyed picks up one of the dresses. Ho ho, looks like you've changed your taste a lot. Dark-haired squints cutely. You can say that. Edith then gives the dressmaker some more instructions on how to make dresses. The Duchess and Lisa are watching the dark-haired woman in surprise. They did not think that Edith would not want new clothes. Finally, it all ends. The dressmaker leaves the estate. Edith says goodbye to Lisa and the Duchess and goes to her room. The girl stretches. I'm tired. Choosing dresses is, of course, interesting but monotonous and boring. Edith wonders how many diamond beads can be collected from all her dresses. Then the dark-haired man turns his thoughts to the Duchess. The girl decides to establish contact with this sweet but influential woman, calling her Mother. Suddenly, Edith stops. She notices Killian at the door of her room. The boy stands with his arms crossed on his chest and looks at Edith. It seems he was waiting for her. The young man's gaze is cold and indifferent. Killian approaches the dark-haired girl and, without explaining anything, orders her to follow him. The girl is surprised. She tries to politely ask the young man what happened, but he doesn't even let her finish. He lowers his head and says with undisguised disappointment, "Lisa invited you to tea." It can be seen that the young man is not very happy with the blonde's decision. The dark-haired one smiles. Ah, of course. She tries to remember if there was a similar episode in the original story. Killian walks quickly down the hall. Edith is in no hurry to catch up with the young man. Why? He doesn't want to see her anyway. The dark-haired woman is sure that Killian sent Liza here. He would not have come to her in this way. A girl can see her husband. Still, he is incredibly handsome. Broad shoulders, good posture, strong legs. The dark-haired woman's heartbeat quickens at the sight of this standard male body. Suddenly, Killian stops and turns his head towards the girl. Edith immediately looks away from the boy. The girl hopes that Killian did not notice how she literally undressed him with her eyes. Fortunately, the young man could not even think about it. He returned to the girl for a completely different reason. The boy asks Edith to watch her tongue, especially in front of Lisa. The girl lowers her eyes. The guy says in a serious tone, "Lise is like a family for us. She is more important to me than you, understand?" Edith expected such a direct confession from the young man. However, his words still hurt her. And the dark-haired man talks about it. Killian snorts. "Can anything hurt you?" The girl reminds the boy that she is also human. "Man?" With a clear mockery in his voice, the young man clarifies, "Not a snake?" Edith raises her eyebrows and responds with insult after insult. Should I treat Lisa in accordance with the manners of a young gentleman? It seems that Killian wants to spoil Edith's mood and show everyone how bad a woman she is. The girl approaches the boy closely. "I'm not one of those people who is easily angered." Killian is again surprised by his wife's behavior. Edith looks into the young man's eyes. "However, hurting me is a completely different matter. And you are great at it." With her head held high, Edith heads for the manor exit, leaving a confused Killian behind. In fact, he was really trying to make the girl angry all this time, so that he could then expose her as a criminal. A minute later, Edith goes out on the terrace. Cliff and Lise are already waiting for her in the gazebo. The blonde smiles at the dark-haired woman. "Come here quickly." Edith thanks the girl for the invitation. The dark-haired one sits down next to Lise. Later, Killian arrives. The girls are discussing something among themselves and laughing. Killian's wife behaves very politely. Cliff decides to intervene in the conversation between the dark-haired and the blonde. The guy picks up his cup of tea and turns to Edith. He asks if she is taking on too much work. "You just got married." The young man smiles. "Shouldn't you and Killian go on a trip?" Edith is not confused. "I think he is very busy." Killian crosses his arms over his chest. His face shows no emotion. A minute later, the boy asks his older brother if now is the best time to explore the lands. Winter is already over. Cliff blinks and says that makes sense. The young man smiles at Lisa and asks if she wants to go with him. "You dreamed of going on a trip somehow," Cliff reminds the blonde. Lisa is confused. She does not know what to say to the boy. The blonde is not against traveling, but going somewhere alone with Cliff doesn't seem like the best idea to her. There may be rumors about their relationship, which is not necessary at all. Also, the girl is afraid to offend Killian. The Duke's younger son is angry with his brother. "Why are you putting Lisa in an awkward position?" He tells the blonde to ignore Cliff's questions. Killian's brother has a different opinion about this situation. If I'm not there, it's because of you that Lisa will be in an awkward position. Edith shares the boys' opinion. Now Killian, Cliff, and Lise look like good brothers and sisters who love and protect each other. But if the Duke's eldest son now goes to explore the lands alone, Lise and Killian will look like lovers. If we take into account that the Duke's youngest son is married, rumors cannot be avoided. Edith wonders about Cliff's behavior. The boy with the yellow eyes is not at all like Killian in character. Maybe his mindset is different because he's the main character. In any case, Edith needs to take a closer look at this young man and figure out how to deal with him. Cliff takes a sip of tea and looks at the dark-haired man. "Lady Edith, what do you think?" he asks. It's interesting to know. The dark-haired one flinches in surprise. "I'm sorry. What are you talking about?" The boy tilts his head to one side and smiles sheepishly. "How do you feel about me being the only one to leave this estate, and to the situation between you, Killian, and Lady Lise?" He folds his hands together, waiting for a response from the dark-haired woman. From the expression on the young man's face, you can understand that the question he asked is not curiosity, but a provocation. The provocation is defiant and undisguised. Cliff's behavior impresses Lisa and even the unmoved Killian. The Duke's younger son frowns at his wife. He is interested to hear what she has to say. The dark-haired man is unable to move. She tries to digest Cliff's question. The girl raises her eyebrows when she realizes that it is too daring. To make fun of a person who has become a hostage of circumstances is too much. The girl is about to wipe the idiotic smile off Cliff's face. The dark-haired woman closes her eyes and puts her hand to her chin. Edith tries to control her anger. She, unlike the members of the Ludwig family, has a sense of tact. The girl picks up the cup and says, "I don't care at all." Showing indifference in such a situation is the best option. Cliff is shocked. What? His younger brother crosses his arms over his chest and smiles faintly. He seems to be satisfied with his wife's answer. Edith tilts her head to the side and explains to Cliff that surveying the lands is the duty of the heir to the dukedom, meaning Cliff. "I have no right to tell you to go or not," says the girl indifferently. Cliff tries to say that's not what he meant, but Edith does not listen to the young man. "As for Lady Lise, I think that a trip with you will be quite a test for her." The dark-haired one smiles. She tells Cliff that not every person can withstand a long journey. Besides, Lady Lise is not the wife of the Duke's eldest son. Edith hints that Cliff's request to the blonde is not entirely polite. The girl hears someone's laughter and opens her eyes wide in surprise. The sound was made by Lady Lise. The blonde put her hand to her mouth, trying to hide a slight smile. Edith's words about his wife amused Liza. The blonde has feelings for Cliff, but tries to pretend to be an innocent girl who has never heard of love. However, Lisa's eyes now betray her thoughts. Edith does not take her eyes off the blonde. Dark-haired understands that everything in this novel is not as clear as it seemed at first glance. Lisa is not so simple. The blonde feels that Edith is looking at her. She quickly wipes the smile off her face. After a second, Lisa opens her eyes wide and asks Cliff if he must go for an examination right now. Edith is shocked by how skillfully Lisa manages her emotions. The girl has natural charm and at the same time restraint. She is not naive at all. And this can bring Edith a lot of problems in the future. But now the dark-haired man is not going to deal with it. She takes a sip of tea. Cliff flashes his yellow eyes and tells the blonde that he is not going anywhere yet. "Our daughter-in-law has such a big heart," adds a couple after a few seconds. There is a hint of mockery in his voice. Cliff glares at Edith. It is this young man, not Lisa, who will be the main problem of the dark-haired woman, and she realizes it. Night. The moon timidly peeks out from behind the clouds, not daring to shine brightly and sharply. Most of Ludwig's family is sleeping peacefully. There is no way Killian alone can plunge into the realm of Morpheus. The guy walks on the balcony looking at the incredible mountain scenery. All of Killian's thoughts are directed to Edith. The young man cannot understand what is happening to his young wife, and most importantly, what he feels for her, apart from hostility. He remembers Edith's hair, dark red-brown, rose color. It is with this flower that the young man associates his wife. With incredibly beautiful but prickly. Also, Killian remembers the tea party with her sister, brother, and Edith, and more precisely, the dark-haired woman's response to Cliff's words about kindness. A faint smile appears on the young man's face. He is forced to admit that Edith behaved with dignity. She didn't offend anyone and put Cliff in his place at the same time. Someone's thin, high-pitched voice pulls Killian out of his thoughts. The boy shuddered in surprise and opened his eyes wide. He thought everyone was already asleep. The young man turns his head to the side and sees Liza. A girl in only a nightgown and slippers peeks out from the door. "Why are you walking around the estate so late, but also alone?" "Climb," says the young man calmly. He doesn't smile at the blonde like he always did. Lise is worried. She asks Killian what happened. The old man squeezes something like a smile out of himself and says that everything is fine. "Just don't sleep somehow." Killian tries not to show his true emotions. He decides to change the subject. "I heard you ordered new dresses. Mom loves dressing you up in new clothes." Lisa sighs and says she feels guilty every time the Duchess buys her loads of clothes. The girl stands next to Killian and directs her gaze to the Duke's garden. She feels that something is wrong with the boy, but she is not going to question him. Killian still won't say anything. He will only get angry and leave. The guy turns his head in the direction of the blonde. "What's your fault? The mother was always jealous of families that had daughters." "And Lisa," he adds after a few seconds, "you take such good care of her that we should be grateful." The blonde smiles shyly. She is not very good at taking compliments, but there is truth in Killian's words. The Duchess's husband and children were brought up as real knights, so she was always a little lonely. The girl lowers her head and says sadly, "Still, I guess buying dresses for Edith would make her happier." Killian frowns. Again, his sister talks about the dark-haired one. As much as possible. She never leaves the young man's head. He barely restrains himself from making a face at the blonde. The guy grits his teeth. "Why do you think so?" Lise says that Edith has not chosen any dress. The young man opens his eyes wide. "What?" "She decided to remake the dresses she brought with her," the girl continues. She also says that Edith helped the Duchess choose her clothes. Killian is shocked. He even begins to doubt that he is married to Edith Riegelhoff. Even too dark-haired differs from the impudent and greedy daughter of the Count, who never wore the same dress twice. The young man looks away from Lise. "Ha!" He clenches his hands into fists. "So it was disgusting for her to buy a dress. And buying a dress for you and your mother is fine, right?" Lisa does not understand the young man's indignation. She says that the girl didn't mean anything like that, but Killian doesn't listen anymore. He is convinced that Edith did not like the atelier. "She wore a vulgar dress to the wedding," says the young man in his mind. Here, of course, the young man bends the stick. Yes, the dress had a deep neckline, but it cannot be called vulgar. In addition, later Edith began to wear only closed clothes. Killian remembers how Edith looked and acted when he went to pick her up this afternoon. Surprisingly, she did not annoy the young man very much. He doesn't want to admit that the dark-haired girl isn't as bad as she's made out to be, and jumps to the wrong conclusions. The young man remembers Edith's hair and pale face again. She's disgusting. The young man tries with all his might to convince himself of this, but something does not give him peace. In Killian's head, a picture appears in which Edith is sitting in the bath, surprised by his appearance. Memories change one by one. The last one is related to today. The young man remembers how the dark-haired woman, flashing her eyes, asked him, "Are you trying to offend me?" Killian thinks he's gone mad. The young man grabs his head, trying to banish the image of Edith Riegelhoff from his mind. Lise looks at Killian with concern. She does not know what is happening to him, but guesses that it is somehow related to the dark hair. The blonde dares to ask the young man about his wife. "You still don't like Edith?" Killian pierces the dark-haired man with a cold gaze. "That woman looks like a snake." He says that now she is lying on the floor calmly, but when everyone relaxes, she will show her fangs. The young man huffs contemptuously. "Killian," Lisa exclaims indignantly. She doesn't understand how a guy can talk about his wife like that. Lisa leaves. Killian looks at the girl but still thinks about Edith. Sooner or later she will find herself another atelier. Morning. Anna enters the dark-haired woman's room. She picks up one of Edith's perfume bottles. "Ma'am, are you almost out of makeup? Call the perfumer?" Edith turns her head towards the maid and asks in surprise, "Cosmetics?" The dark-haired girl had completely forgotten that cosmetics are not replenished just like that. You need to spend money on perfume, blush, and other similar things. Edith wonders, will I be able to afford to buy cosmetics? The position of the dark-haired woman in this story is unstable, so she saved money to be ready for the situation when she needed it. Edith remembers how she asked the dressmaker to remove the diamonds from the dresses. However, the dark-haired woman has not yet exchanged the jewels for money. The girl crosses her arms over her chest. It's a difficult situation, but Edith is an aristocrat, so she should buy cosmetics, right? It is difficult for the girl to spend money, and all because of a past life. Edith opens her eyes wide and remembers hiding in the toilet and putting old lipstick on her lips. However, now the dark-haired woman decides to enjoy life to the fullest. She smiles and asks Anna to call the perfumer. The maid hurries to fulfill the order of the lady. A perfumer enters the room. He shows the girl various perfumes. After a few minutes, the dark-haired woman freezes in place. What did I just hear?